Hey guys, it's Always Improving here, and today I'm back with 2 watercolor portrait paintings. And I know I've been doing a lot of portraits recently, and this is a good thing because I enjoy creating these. I enjoy painting portrait pictures, and because of that, I can continue creating them and releasing videos for you all to see. And the reason I've done 2 today is because they are smaller, and I did them in right after each other, so I decided that it'd be a good idea to include them together. This specific one, I start with a layer of yellow. I took my own reference photo for this picture and decided to add a bit of rim lighting, I would say. And after putting on that layer of yellow to get a nice undertone for the painting and kind of develop that sense of light, I went in with I just added a little bit more red, into my yellow mixture and slowly built up the reds in the areas that I knew there would be blood flow. Again, cheeks, neck, kind of the nose as well in some areas. And then after that, I would add some shadow areas with deep brown colors by adding a little bit more blue into the mix of my orange colors. And this allowed me to not gray out my shadow areas. Even though some of them were more neutral and more gray, there were still shadows that were deeper brown and showed a lot of depth into the image. I also just tried to smooth out all the colors. I wanted there to be a transition from red to yellow to brown on her cheek that's facing us. That was what I really wanted. I wanted to be able to see that shadow but still have a slice of light between the red of her cheek and the darkness of the shadow. So that's what I was really trying to build up and build up those specific shadows, like underneath her neck, on her cheek, underneath her eyes, and again on her chin as well. And then after smoothing that all out and kind of being satisfied with that base layer, I went in with other details and added in the hair. I decided on a black hair that was just behind her, nothing too fancy, but I did it in layers, negatively painting those highlights on the bottom layers and then slowly building up the darker areas around those highlights. And that allowed me to retain some of the white of the page or even just a lighter shade of gray for those highlights. Other details I added, the lips obviously are a nice kind of orange tone, but also like a deep red. They have a lot of shadow on them because they kind of are the midpoint of the face as well, like the nose. So there is a side of shadow and a side of light. I also, in this image, decided to use some sort of like random elements to add a little bit more interest. And I did this, I did actually like plan this beforehand. You probably saw it in the sketch in the beginning, but I just planned where I wanted them, and before I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I ended up deciding on somewhat of a gradient. From on the top of the page I have like yellows and a little bit more yellowish greens, and on the bottom of the page I have more blue and bluish greens. I don't know for sure why I chose those colors. I think they just looked nice with the rest of the image, and I maybe contrasted like the red and yellow of her skin that were dominating. Maybe I think that's why they look good together, I guess is what I should say. And for this image, like for the actual portrait, I used mainly my split primaries, and I even focused on specifically, I would say, Hansa Yellow Light, French Ultramarine, and Quinacridone Rose. And I think just using a limited palette allowed me to like focus on my color mixing and know exactly what I wanted from the mixture, and like have a goal when mixing a color. I knew what I needed to add. It just made it a lot simpler for me and easier for me to get the appropriate color I wanted. Here you can see me adding a layer of like orangish tone to the whole painting, and that was because I wanted her skin to be more vibrant. I also added some nice like, I don't know, glowy things in the background. I think that helped take out some of that empty space I had and added a little bit more visual interest into the background. But yeah, overall this painting was interesting, and I don't really love the concept, I would say, but I think I executed it well and it looks nice. And I think that adding those random elements in the background were an interesting piece of this portrait, and I'd like to continue doing that, adding a little bit more like randomness and a little bit more interest into the piece. I think it was a nice addition, but overall I do like this portrait, and again, I think I executed it well, but the concept could have been a bit different. And for this second portrait I am showing you guys, I know you guys have seen this concept before, and I wanted to retry this painting because I just wanted to refocus my goals, and I did this in a smaller way to allow that to happen. So first I used the light box to transfer over my more refined sketch onto some watercolor paper. I'm using Arch's cold pressed paper that I just cut. I cut a 9x12 in half for these two paintings. I also did, after using my light box, I did some color studies just to ensure I had a clear goal of what I wanted with this piece. The initial layer of this painting was Quinacridone Rose, which is a similar approach to what I did before, where I used Hansa Yellow Light in order to achieve a general tone of this piece, except for this painting I wanted a more warm tone, and I wanted red to shine through as the main color in this piece. After laying down that initial layer of Quinacridone Rose, I moved on into the background where I added a very, very dark color, a blue, but also kind of a deep purple in some areas as well, and I thought that that would contrast well with the lightness of the skin that I had laid down. Continuing with the skin, I added a lot of vibrant colors in order to achieve, again, that vibrant red color that I wanted to really shine through. And I also wanted to emphasize color because it's one of my main goals in portraits now, is to make very vibrant and saturated colors shine through in my final product, and I knew that these vibrant colors would dull down once dried, and so I wasn't worried about making them too vibrant because I could always dull them down later, and I wanted to build up more vibrancy and more saturation in my colors for the end of this piece. However, the hair was a challenge for me because I knew that I wanted it to be a darker color to contrast the lightness of the skin. However, I had already decided to make the background a very dark color as well. So to combat this issue, I made the hair much redder than I had intended in the original color study, and this was so that the background and the hair would be very distinct and would have very different color temperatures, and this allowed a contrast to build between the two while also building a contrast between the lightness of the skin and the hair. So I wanted to make the red color be different from the background while having the value of the darkness of the hair be different from the skin tone, and that really helped achieve a separation of those three areas. And I did enjoy the red color that I had mixed for the hair. I think it ended up a very gorgeous reddish brown color that I really think ended up looking nice in the final product. Continuing with this portrait, I developed more and more shadows, and in all areas, the lips, the skin, the hair. I wanted to build up those shadows, but I did so a bit differently than I had in the original painting, or in the first painting, I guess, that I showed you. I did this by adding colors on top of colors rather than mixing a darker color and then adding it. I added a layer of blue and then a layer of red and then a layer of purple and then continuing to build up that. Instead of going in immediately with a dark value, I decided to approach it a bit differently, and I did this in the skin as well, where I would add a layer of red and then a layer of yellow in order to create orange, and I would mix those on the paper instead of on the palette, and this offered me an interesting way to build up more saturation, and I think it ended up looking gorgeous for the final product. I really loved this painting, and I think that it achieved all the things that I wanted to achieve, whereas the first painting for this kind of concept didn't do that. So I was really happy with the final product for this painting, and I really hope you enjoyed seeing the process of this painting, because both of these paintings I think were successes in my book, and I think that both of these paintings had different things that I liked about them and had different things that I know that I now need to work on. So again, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed seeing the progression of these two paintings, and if you did, I hope I'll see you for the next one. Bye!